In the shadowy corners of power and influence, where the lines between truth and deception blur, lies a world that few dare to explore. Join us as we venture into the labyrinth of the unspoken, the hidden, the deliberately obscured. We shine a light on the dogma that's been fed to the masses, unmasking the intricate web of deception spun by those who wish to control you. Welcome to Beyond Undisclosed. The truth is waiting.
Hello, thank you for joining. You got Beyond Undisclosed, and we have a guest today, a very unique guest, and we're very honored to have him. Robert Potter has been a researcher for many years. He's also been a contactee for multiple occasions, and he has been actually receptive to the messages that are being broadcast to mankind itself. Robert Potter, please introduce yourself better than I can. At least I hope you know who you are. So please tell me about yourself. Tell me about your history a little bit.
Thank you so much, Alan. It's an honor to be here and to be sharing. This is a new platform for me. In fact, folks, there's a whole new technology with screen sharing. So if it's not super professional, that's my fault. I apologize. Alan's doing a great job there trying to get the truth out to the public, and I was recommended him through some other gentlemen that I work with on a new platform that you'll be learning about soon. So to give you a little background about myself, I'm 67 years old. I've had a very unique life, and I've become a contactee in various stages of extraterrestrials. Now, I want to be clear, that doesn't make me anything special. I am just a postman delivering a message. I have had some extraordinary experiences, and I've met a lot of amazing people, some from this earth and some not from this earth. If you don't want to hear about extraterrestrials, if you don't want to hear your political views, even in the alt media shook up, you can disregard this radio show, because I'm going to be telling a lot of things based on truth and my personal experiences, and I have evidence to prove it. Whether anyone accepts that evidence, I don't know. And I'm going to say, for those who have ears, let them hear. For those who have eyes, let them see. Everyone must make decisions and discernment in your life. You must use your reason. You must use your wisdom. And, knowledge. Let's talk about knowledge. Knowledge, actually, you go back. Where's knowledge? Light is knowledge. Knowledge is power. And there's people who manipulate knowledge and keep knowledge from you to maintain control over you. But that is ending. There's a whole new dispensation coming on the earth. And there's a cosmic awakening, whether anyone wants to think about it. This is not a political awakening. It's not about a financial reset. This is not about any alleged political leader that many are proposing as a savior. This is about the interior awareness and your knowledge of the truth and what's taking place. I'm going to start out telling you we're not alone. We never have been alone, and we never will be alone on this planet. There's a multi-dimensional aspect to our reality, but we are very focused in this particular bandwidth of the third dimension. This is part of the soul's evolution and our development. So I want to talk about the positive relationship, and I'm going to give you a little history of my experiences. So I grew up in Laguna Beach. My family was, was kind of from New York, and my mother was very open-minded. I lived in a town called Laguna Beach. You've probably seen it on those ridiculous, the ridiculous show, the Laguna Beach, and all that reality TV. Put all that aside and think of the beauty. I was really fortunate. I got the birth lottery. Laguna is a paradisical city there on the shores of Laguna Beach, surrounded all the way by a green belt all around. That's closing in a little bit now. But I grew up on the shores of Laguna Beach, going to the beach and frolicking. I was very fortunate. My stepfather owned a house right on the beach. I was a swimmer, a lifeguard, and kind of a wild and crazy guy, and quite humorous. And I was always a seeker of truth. I have a quick mind, and I always, when I found the truth, I wouldn't be afraid to share it. And that's kind of my personality, and my choice in this life is to share some amazing experiences. So you can research my website, which you're going to see here in a little bit. And the website is called thepromiserevealed.net. I'm going to take you through a couple things. And every year I have a summer conference, and there's a big summer conference coming up. But what I'm going to share with you today is some very extraordinary things. And I don't care if you believe them or not. It's not really important, but I've been told to share these messages directly. So I'm going to give you a little bit of a history. When I was 8 years old, my mom was living in Altadena, and we moved there for a short period of time away from Laguna. And it was in the civil rights era of '64, and I was, I was pretty, new to the area. And there was, we had some black people in my school in Laguna, not a whole, but there was a lot of tension, and I wasn't really, I'm not a prejudiced guy. I looked at everyone the same, and there was, I could definitely feel some angst and upsetness, of course, because of the situation politically and the history of racial tension in the country and the world that still exists. And I'd like you all to realize that we're all brothers and sisters under a living God, and race, creed, color, religion, social strata, we're all part and parcel of God. God is everywhere and everything. Someone says, well, where's God? There's nowhere that God is not. And this is a universal understanding and a principle. And I'm not here to force any religion down anyone, but I can tell you certain facts about the universe that I personally have experienced, literally on multidimensional levels. I've been fortunate in that my awareness has been expanded. I've been taken off the planet on quite a few occasions out of my body. And then I was taken aboard a mothership in 1989. That's another story. Or it's a reality for me, whether you choose to believe it or not. So again, if this is blowing your mind and you can't handle it, I'm not really concerned. I have to go forward and tell the truth. That's my promise. And that's the sign of my website, is a promise revealed. It's a promise made by God to humanity and the evolution of humanity. And there's a lot of very complex things going forward here. But if we do a series here or on my website, you can look at my YouTube and various things and my truth references. I have a lot of posts where I share a lot of information. You can get lost in here for days. And many other things. So I'm going to start it off real simple. So I went upstairs to my mom and I said, what's going on? I was reflecting the racial tension, some people were trying to fight with me, and I was like, dude, we're just playing handball with a rubber ball. And there were long lines, and I finally got good enough and I could hold the court for a while. Then the tension came. I'll have to say it was probably a majority African American school, and I didn't have any problems. I thought some of the girls were cute. It was interesting for me. I was probably only in that school for about 6 months, but I was going, what's going on? There's so much problems. Why are people fighting, and what's going on? As I grew older, I understood the condition of what was happening and why I was, I guess, targeted for the color of my skin. So it was a good personal lesson for me to understand that. But in my view, in my orientation, I've never really felt that. prejudice, nor have I projected it. I have judgments on white people or black people or Chinese people who are doing bad things. But this caused me anxiety, and I asked my mom, I said, what's going on? What's going on in the universe? What's the purpose of life? Where do we come from? And she goes, what do you want to know? I go, what's out there? And she goes, it goes on forever, the universe. And I said, I kind of laughed, like, it can't, what do you mean forever? It can't go on. So I was kind of thinking, and she goes, what do you think's out there? I said, she said, a wall? And I go, I don't know, maybe. I was 8 years old. And she goes, a chain link fence? And she goes, yeah. She goes, what's on the other side? And then she told me, I come from the Tiffany family in New York. They made lamps and had a jewelry store. My grandmother was involved in the Better Business Bureau and the Printers Inc. as a philanthropist. Her husband was working with Upton Sinclair fighting certain things, and she was kind of a debutante in the front page of the paper for the first transatlantic flight. And she worked with Ernest Holmes and Mary Baker Eddy of Science of the Mind. She went to seances with Harry Houdini. So my grandmother was a metaphysical, spiritual, awakened person, and passed that on to my mother. So my mother said, you know, there's other beings in the universe that you can't see. She kind of gave it dimensions, and I said, okay, I kind of like that. And I said, it goes on forever. And she goes, yeah. And so I kind of walked downstairs with a kind of a, to ponder that. I went on my bed, and it was getting dark and twilight. So in my bed, up at ground level in the basement, looking up, I watched with interest as a small light maneuvered itself into the center of my window and kind of flared up a bit. I then received my first, I will call it, contact with space family. And everyone has space family. Everyone's been here before. And if you don't understand reincarnation, this show's not for you. So if your cup is full and you know everything and it's crammed into one religious book, one or the other, I'm not going to put any religion before each other. But again, my information is not for you. But if you want,
let me inject here. As far as religion is concerned, you can't get 3-4 million people following an idea or belief without there being a level of truth. And as we look at all these different religions, it reminds me of the three blind men and the elephant, that each one of these religions may have part of the truth, but not the entire truth. So,
right, the entire truth exists in reality, and each person has a way to find that within themselves too. But so anyway, I started to get a telepathic communication where it kind of told me the Earth is going to go through these changes, and everything is going to come to a head, and at a certain point, people will be removed or evacuated from the Earth. Now let's put that aside and fast forward to the age of 16. I was a normal beach boy kind of kid. I was a lifeguard and on the beach in front of my house. It was kind of but I had a strong metaphysical thing that I kind of inherited from my mother, and I was reading Psychic Discoveries Behind the Iron Curtain about pyramids, and I was talking to some friends at the lunch break, and I said I was really into pyramids, and this friend of mine, this girl, interjects, and she says, Robbie, you're into pyramids? I know the Pyramid Man. So that began my association with Dr. Fred Bell. I'm going to go through his, a lot of times it's on my my website and my YouTube, so I'm going to give you this quick synopsis of Fred Bell. His great uncle invented the telephone, and his father invented the automatic transmission and the alternator for Henry Ford. He was an engineer, a very advanced guy. He bought the London Bridge over. He built many buildings in New York and Los Angeles. So Fred Bell grew up on Henry Ford's hemp farms, running through the fields where his father was hanging out with Bob Johnson and Bob McCulloch, or Bob Johnson and Bob McCulloch of McCulloch and Johnson. Those are mostly boat engines. And he was being bounced on his lap by these gentlemen when he was very young. At the age of 15, he was studying the shock wave of the atomic bomb with Dr. Leonard Katz in Ann Arbor, Michigan, and working with linear collider accelerators and Wilson cloud chambers. He said he got a lot of his intuitive knowledge that came forward. So at the age of 16, which was illegal, the U.S. government came to his home on his 16th birthday and took him, gather your things, you were coming into the Air Force, and we're taking you to UC Santa Barbara in the ROTC program. So he had no choice at 16, which is illegal. But by the time he was 17, he had a PhD in physics, and he was working in electrical engineering. Well, come to 1960, they had built the world's top radar set, the ANFS, I think it's the P-38, and they were placed in various locations around the country. He was on the westernmost, he was stationed at the new base on Point Reyes, California, which is like above San Francisco where California goes out. Of course, there was one up in Alaska as well. But he was placed there, and during the Cuban Missile Crisis, he was in there. Well, first of all, you got to imagine, they go, well, who's in charge of this new thing that's being constructed? So he was there overseeing the construction. They go, this 20-year-old kid, and all the people involved were like, this kid is in charge? So he was pretty much the smartest guy in the room. You know, he had some serious Leo energy, and anyone who saw his chart could see he was very involved in physics and metaphysical stuff, or beyond physics, science. So he started complaining that they were burning the reports, because they were going down and watching carefully. And he started putting in the reports every day, and he would stand up and he would give a lecture to the bosses in there about the illegality of doing this. So this went on for 2 or 3 weeks, and he got pretty upset. So I think he told me he got drunk one night, and then on a Saturday night or something, he took his motorcycle. He had a motorcycle, and he was wearing like T-shirts like Jimmy Dean and all that stuff. Or I'm sorry, James Dean. And he did a bunch of donuts around his house at 3 in the morning. So they knew it was him. So the next day he went into work. He got up with his report to do the ritual burning of his report. They said, we've been doing this since the early 40s, son. And he said, anyway, they bought him some military police. He brought him in, they put him in a straitjacket, and they took him to the mental hospital. He was there for about 3 hours. He had a talk with the doctor, and he said, call them, tell them if they give me an honorable discharge, I will leave. So that day, he was given an honorable discharge. It fast-tracked. The next day, he left the base. It wasn't 3 days later, he got a call from NASA under Werner von Braun back then, and NASA put him in charge, not in charge actually, they should have, but they put him in the wiring of the capsule of the astronauts. So he's there a couple months. It's, you know, the Cuban Missile Crisis was in '63. So he's there for a couple months, and he starts complaining. He goes, these guys don't know what they're doing. And here again, we're looking at 20-year-old Fred Bell in 1963. He was born in 1943. So we have this this kid who's complained. He's not afraid of the horses that be, and he's made complaints now up the chain of command. And I think he told me he was really upset. He could see disaster coming, and he finally confronted Werner von Braun, and he described that he was walking down a hallway, and he kind of stepped out in the middle, and Werner von Braun was coming, and had a bunch of Nazis behind him in Operation Paperclip, bought over by the Rat Line. Pope Ratzinger was in charge of moving Nazis out through the Catholic Church and into the submarines from Italy or Spain or wherever they were doing. And he's not the Pope then, but he was whatever he was. So he comes down the line, and he says, Dr. Brown. He goes, my name is Fred Bell. He goes, yes, and they were coming in the V behind him, and they all kind of stopped and kind of surrounded him a little bit. He goes, "You're going to have some problems. There's some shoddy workmanship in the electrical capsule. I'm working with some idiots." Basically, he may have put it differently. I don't know the exact conversation, but he said, "Van Bram, Carl, take care of this." So they took care of it all right. He was fired the next day, escorted off, and he immediately filed suit with the ALCU. Well, again, a couple of weeks later, he's working at, he worked at Northrop Grumman, at eventually JPL, and McDonnell Douglas. He was working there for a while. So 2 years later, his lawyer calls him. He says, "You won the suit, and I got you some punitive damages." So he got 2 years of pay, punitive damages, and the same day he received a call. He received a call from NASA asking him to be the head of the entire quality control check on NASA, because you'll remember, folks, 3 men died on the Cape where Fred Bell was working and called it out. Unfortunately, if they would have listened to him, probably because he was too young, 20 years old, he's correcting the big boys. So now he's working behind the scenes, and he was working, like, for instance, on the Saturn rocket in Long Beach. He said at the end of the day, every day they would come out, and a spaceship would hover above the hangar, and a spaceship would send 2 little probes out, would come around the thing and come down to the bottom. So by the time I met him, and I think it was in 1973 or 4, I went up to his house, and he had a beautiful home up there. There's another part of his life. He was working with an Indian guru who had an ashram in San Francisco. The front door was Hayton Waller. The back door was Haight Ashbury. So he was the guru of the Flower Children movement, telling the kids about love. So that was kind of my early history with Fred Bell, and thus began my association with him. Do you have any questions or anything you want to ask, Alan? Or?
Well, I've been sitting here off camera. I'd let you have full screen there. Let me go ahead and put this back. Yeah, there's a couple of things I'd like to point out. First of all, this doesn't, require a great deal of religious belief or anything like that. That what this does require is just simply an open mind in order to be able to take a look at the information in front of you. In addition to that, the history of the people that we're describing is actually quite astonishing and has a real place in our history books. It's not something that, the normal person cannot, relate to, because these things are historical facts. They're part of our history as far as science is concerned, and these are some very major players that are involved here. Now, are these other people also contactees, or can you describe this interaction?
What other people? Well, look, extraterrestrials have been coming here literally since before life began on the planet. The Venusians actually come from a planet called Tau Ceti, a planet in the Tau Ceti star system. Their world was losing its atmosphere, and they knew this was coming, and I think it was for several thousand years they were preparing to leave their world, and they saw our planet could inhabit life. So they came here with a large number of spaceships, very large, and they shot to our system, and they came here and they saw a lemur developing, and they decided to allow that evolution to not interfere with it. But on Venus, they found a prehistorical planet with very large forests and things like that, and the native population was a sentient bumblebee.
Now, wait a minute. Isn't Venus supposed to be a bunch of noxious gas, not exactly habitable for even silicone life?
No, not.
Okay, so let's start with what the anomaly is with Venus, okay, and show that. The final countdown
Can you see
rockets
the
to
whole book
Venus. Yes, I sure do.
here? Okay, I'm fast forwarding. I'm fast forwarding to my friend who's a Venus historian. He was taken to Venus and lived there for 10 weeks from December 21st to about the third week in February, I believe, January, February, yeah, maybe in the beginning of March. I don't know the exact time, so 21st, you can do that. So what happened was my friend is a researcher, and so he was able to go to Venus, and I don't want to start blowing people's minds at this point as an introduction, but he explains here there's been a cover-up, ladies and gentlemen, about the truth of life in our universe, because they know if we were to understand the truth, that we would not be happy with the political powers that be, who steal money. And there's a whole system here. This goes into another, what I will call exopolitical aspect of the relationship of extraterrestrials and the politics on the earth. The CIA does many things, but their most important job is to keep the secret of extraterrestrials private. They deal drugs. There's a whole history there of the bad stuff. But I want to focus on some of the positive information. So let me tell you, when they say, oh, we looked at the atmosphere and it's, it's 1,000 degrees, they're looking at the upper ionosphere. That's detailed. Every lie from every government, the names of the reports in Russia, all around the world are exposed in this book. So I'm not, I'm just going to say, you got to put your beliefs aside, because I'm going to give you a whole new reality here. That's my job and my mission, is to break it to everyone, and those people need to hear. There's a lot of evolution and understanding that needs to take place, because there's a lot of changes coming on the earth, politically, vibrationally, socially, culturally, and we have to understand a lot of the lies. First, we have to go through those stages like death. First denial, and then when we find out the truth, there can be, like anger, and then we go through. Finally, we come to accept it, and we realize that we've been had, and that there's a lot more lies than you would think. Go ahead.
Let's go back to Venus. Now, there's obviously, I do know for a fact that they lied to us about Mars. They said it doesn't have an atmosphere, and then they sit there and use a parachute in order to land. That's kind of
Right.
telling. That they've been lying about that. The moon does have an atmosphere. When they looked at the space chutes afterwards, they discovered they had a lot of leaks, and the reason why it wasn't that big of a concern during the moonwalks is because the moon does have an atmosphere as well. If it stands to reason, if it's 1/6 the gravity of Earth, it would have 1/6 the atmosphere of Earth, since it's sitting in our orbit and picking up whatever debris we throw at it. And then, we have Venus, which seems to be a little bit more of less of a mystery. It's supposed to be gaseous, all this other stuff, but you're saying that there's actually something like the dinosaur age occurring on Venus right now. Is that what's going on?
No, I'm not. So you see that there? Can you read that?
Absolutely. I
Can you
can
read
I can
that?
read that. Yes.
Can you read that for the audience that can't see it?
Yeah, it says government censorship.
Yeah, the title of that chapter is Putting the Spin on Venus, Government Censorship, Protecting You from Reality. So basically, Venus is our sister planet. Some facts about Venus that people may not know: it spins in the opposite direction of the Earth. Their day is 119 days of day and 119 days of night. They were very close to another planet that was once called the Morning Star. Some people call that Tiamat or Marduk. This planet destroyed itself in a nuclear accident that is now what's called the asteroid belt. And then you also have, as the particles get smaller, what's called the Kuiper belt, smaller asteroids, and then farther out it's called the Oort cloud. There are some other asteroids in those various rings, but life in this universe is constantly growing, and many worlds reach a point of civilization where they destroy themselves. They discover the power of the atomic bomb, and their level of development and emotional maturity is not matched by their technological development.